Welcome to another in the series of Mystical Perspectives. This is a show about spiritual mind power affirmations. I go into each week different affirmations from Dr. Paul Leon Masters' latest book, Spiritual Mind Power Affirmations. This book is available at metaphysics.com and on Amazon. Today, the chapter I'm going to be reading is a wonderful one, Mysteries of Christ Consciousness. Now, the way I work these things, I take a page and I get the book and I read the affirmations and I study them. I study them for about a week after meditation, and I really find so much comes to me. It still surprises me, although I've been doing these studies for over 50 years. I'm amazed at how powerful and how completely in tune with the highest energy this book is. I'll be reading from this particular page, which is, if you have the book, page 30, and I'll be reading the affirmations. I'll read it once and then repeat if you want to read it along or state it along if you don't have the book, and then we'll go into a little talk and a meditation about the subject, starting with the mysteries of Christ consciousness. The first affirmation is, first manifestation. I understand that Christ light consciousness is the first manifestation, or unmanifest spirit, or God. In parentheses, the only begotten Son of God, the Bible reference. I'll repeat that. I understand that Christ light consciousness is the first manifestation of unmanifest spirit or God. Now again, here's the Bible reference, the only begotten Son of God. So that's one of the things Dr. Masters likes to do, is take Bible references and put them in the true mystical light of the power of what the original words were meant when spoken by Christ. So what they're saying here, and what Dr. Masters is saying, is the truth that this Christ-like consciousness is the direct link, the one connection, the first manifestation of unmanifest spirit or God, which contains in it the mystery, which is so powerful, that you can connect with that God while embodied through the Spirit, because that is the first manifestation. And that first manifestation was brought to earth and manifested in Christ. Now, the Christ light and the Christ consciousness anyone can hold. Jesus Christ actually was the example of how that was possible. The next affirmation is on light. I understand that Christ consciousness exists as an infinite light field. Just one sentence and so powerful. I'll repeat it. I understand that Christ consciousness exists as an infinite light field. So, in the beginning was the Word, and in the Word was from the light. That light was the very source and is still the source. And that Christ consciousness takes us to that infinite light field. We are created from that field of light. We live and allow that light to come through us, and that light enlightens us. The enlightenment experience is the same as Christ consciousness. In Christ consciousness, you are always connected to that light. You don't ever leave that light. Easier said than done, right? The next affirmation is center. I understand that Christ light consciousness exists in all creations, both animate and inanimate, the physical world and other energy worlds of a non-physical nature. Okay, I'll repeat it if you want to say along. I understand that Christ light consciousness exists in all creations, both animate and inanimate, the physical world and other energy worlds of a non-physical nature. So what you have here is this amazing bridge between the animate and inanimate, the physical world, and other worlds that exist. This ties you into that cosmic consciousness, the consciousness that exists throughout the entire universe. The next one is filter. I understand that Christ light consciousness acts as a filter or filters through the consciousness or spirit or God. Let's repeat that. I understand that Christ light consciousness acts as a filter or filters through the consciousness or spirit of God. Now, this is a very interesting thought. I have to say, I always have been fascinated with this idea of filter. We are bringing in that channel of light and love. We are, if possible, a clear channel. I once asked, the man who wrote the book about talking to God, Neil Donald Walsh, of how did he know his words were coming from God and not being filtered through his personality. And he was adamant that they were from God. But we all do have our filters because we do have our personalities. We do have our mental body. We have our emotional body. We have our life, and our energy is filtered. And that consciousness or spirit of God comes through that. But here we're saying that same example, but brought up to the higher level, that the Christ-like consciousness is indeed acting as a filter through the consciousness of spirit or God. So what if Christ was indeed channeling that highest filter of God, which he was? He was a perfect reflection of God. And that filter then is filtered again through us. And the more we identify with the source, with the spirit or God, the more we can again be in tune with that resource. The next affirmation is reaching God. I understand that to reach God's presence or spirit, I must enter Christ light consciousness, which is one with God's unmanifest spirit. And in parentheses here, no man cometh unto the Father except through me. Of course, that's the Bible reference there. I'll repeat this, reaching God. We all want to reach God, don't we? I think if you're listening to this, you do have that desire to reach God. I understand that to reach God's presence or spirit, I must enter Christ light consciousness, which is one with God's unmanifest spirit. No man cometh unto the Father except through me. So let's be clear on this. Dr. Masters always says that there's many paths to God, and there are many ways and religions, and all paths lead to God. But to reach that God presence or spirit, you go into the Christed light consciousness. Now, there are many masters and many teachers who held that Christ light consciousness. In metaphysics, we recognize that the masters of Buddha and Krishna and Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene and many, many, many more hold that Christ-like consciousness. There's an example of this, of course, when Saul or Paul was obtaining that Christ-like consciousness. He had been really attacking the people who were following Christ, and then he had that enlightenment, and he was in tune with that Christ-like consciousness, which was one through God's unmanifest spirit. So you go into that to reach God, because that is the way, that's the path, and that light, as it was also said, I am the way, I am the path, and that is the path that you reach that light. No matter which way you get to that path, it's fine. You do eventually, I guess everyone, sooner or later, will become part of that, enlightened consciousness as we all evolve. The next statement is coexistence. I understand that Christ light consciousness and unmanifest God spirit consciousness coexist in a state of light within darkness and darkness within light. As said in the Bible, the Father and I are one. I'll repeat this. I understand that Christ light consciousness and unmanifest God spirit consciousness coexist in a state of light within darkness and darkness within light. Of course, what comes to mind here is the powerful yin and yang, that circle where you have the two dancing together in a circle, the dark and the light. This is part of the mystery that we're talking about, in the mysteries of Christ consciousness. In the darkness became the light, and the light became the darkness. From the darkness it returns to light. We come from light, and we return from light, but we are in matter and the darkness, and in the darkness we bring the light, and we also change that darkness with our light. We transform that darkness, and we coexist in oneness. And in that the Father and I are one is the coexistence of the Christ light consciousness and the unmanifest spirit or God consciousness existing as one together. Now here is also a secret about where is our manifestation of our own lights. We are co-creators. Are we manifesting in light, or are we manifesting negative dark energy? Are we aware of the light and becoming light workers, working with that in coexistence with God? The next one's human consciousness. I understand that whether or not in every person's mind Christ-like consciousness exists as entry context to God's consciousness or spirit. With the Bible reference here, let the mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus. And I'll repeat it. I understand that whether or not in every person's mind Christ-like consciousness exists as entry context to God's consciousness of spirit. Let the mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus. Now, here we're taking that consciousness level. There's so many levels of consciousness, right? Consciousness, subconscious, collective consciousness, mental consciousness, spiritual consciousness, higher consciousness, cosmic consciousness. And we're talking about the Christ-light consciousness as an entry point to God's consciousness of spirit. And that is why anyone can indeed embody that mind that can be in you that was in Christ Jesus. A Christed mind existed in many of the masters. That Christed mind brought Christ-like consciousness that was their connection to God consciousness or spirit. It is that highest light of consciousness. And it doesn't have to mean you're a Christian. You can have a Christed mind and make direct connection with God in the mystical sense that what is mysticism is having that connection, that Christ-like conscious connection. And the last affirmation here is entrance. I understand that to enter into heavenly awareness of Christ-like consciousness, and thus God's presence, I must set aside my personal will in favor of God's will and become still enough through meditation to know or experience God's Spirit. With the Bible reference here, peace, be still and know the I am. And that's also sometimes said as peace be still and know that I am God. I'm going to repeat this one, entrance. I understand that to enter into the heavenly awareness of Christ light consciousness, and thus God's presence, I must set aside my personal will in favor of God's will and become still enough through meditation to know and experience God's Spirit. Peace, be still, and know the I am. Again, this is always brought up in every single one of these mystical perspective shows, and as we talk about Dr. Masters, the key and the basis for everything, of course, is meditation. And there are many forms of meditation, but many of them are really just tricks to get your mind, which is called in metaphysics and Buddhism the monkey mind, to be still. Some people use words, some people use mantras and affirmations. But the idea behind all that is to be still enough to actually be quiet and find that place in the stillness that connects you with the I am that I am. Now let's do a little talk about this. This is such a huge subject we're bringing up today. It goes very, very, very deep. First of all, what is Christ consciousness? Now, it's a state of mind where all things are seen and felt to be one. We are connected with the oneness and the source of all, so we can indeed experience that oneness. Christ consciousness is the universal consciousness, the God consciousness, the state where being, or where rational thought, our monkey mind, is transcended and personal enlightenment is obtained. Christ consciousness is oneness as a state for us to all be healed and to lose our separation in our personalities and our ego and to let go of that. It's a way to perceive within ourselves that key to be able to connect with God. Edgar Cayce said that there never was a time when Christ consciousness did not exist, and it was embodied by Jesus as a pattern to follow. Christ consciousness is the growing human recognition and blending of the human evolution of the mind with the divine mind and the divine personality and the true source of the God consciousness, our ultimate purpose and fulfillment and understanding. This awareness is continuing to grow, and it has continued to grow over thousands of years. But we have on this planet a lot of issues that people's egos and separation bring to this planet, this place, this separation, this battlefield, this war that happens between the ego and the darkness and the light. When we have that Christed state of being, the higher mindedness of enlightenment, we do find the peace that passeth all understanding. It is the solution to having peace on earth. Do you, or can you even think of anything separating you from Christ consciousness? I ask this question because sometimes in meditation we have to go very deep, and there can be a block that we encounter, and then your body or your mind or something can fidget, and you can turn away from having to face what might be separating you from letting go of your ego and any kind of blocks or negativity that's there. Of course, that's where some of the sacred tools of forgiveness and understanding and compassion come in, so that we can let those go. But it's a very long process, and it can take a lifetime, or 2, or 3, or 4. So this is where the meditation comes in again. Take into your own consciousness in meditation if there's anything that might be separating you from achieving that Christ consciousness. Maybe you don't think you're worthy. Maybe you're not ready to have that direct connection to Christ mind consciousness. But that's again where meditation comes in. And the teachings of Jesus Christ centered around helping people find their internal, that inner source of spirit. He was the embodiment of what we need to do to be able to accept that consciousness. The compassion, the love, the goodness, the peace, the understanding. And his God-centeredness allowed him to achieve what we considered miracles because he understood the natural laws of the universe and was able to tap into that amazing power of God, that love that brings healing to people. He practiced meditation and prayer to meet all the challenges that he had to face in life. He indeed said the kingdom of heaven is within. And he lived his life to show us how to find that kingdom of heaven within, that spirit that connects us directly to his Christ consciousness and God consciousness. And another thing that came up here and does come up in these affirmations is being able to be still and know that you are God. To be able to be still is one of the more difficult things sometimes in meditation for people. But if you can really, and I say this many times when I go into meditation, I tell my mind, be still and know that I am God. That opens the doorway to the circle of light that is the present still point within. And it helps to change your focus into the one focus, to release the body and mind and to just be in that peace that passeth understanding in the stillness of the silence. And that presence that comes in is that presence of spirit, Christ consciousness. You can be with this spirit in stillness. You can become the presence of that spirit, merge with that spirit, and unite with the love that is the gift of the I am, that is the light of God within every soul. You can allow yourself to bring God's presence into stillness with that presence within you, surrendering your will to the living light and love of God. That's surrendering your ego to the higher presence of God. So we're going to do a meditation that goes into this, and I'll also say a prayer that goes into this as well. What we want to do is to go into that still point within. Take a few deep, powerful breaths right now. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, hold your breath, and breathe out. Breathe in and say to yourself, be still and know that I am God. Invite that presence right now, that presence of the Christ light and the unconditional love to come into your heart. See that light from the one source come down through your crown chakra into your head. Let your entire mind be enlightened with that light. Let it be absorbed into that light. Let it be transformed by that light. And now breathe in deeper and bring that energy down through your neck into your heart chakra. Now experience that Christed love, the unconditional love that heals and accepts. Go deep into your heart. Breathe in that power of love. Feel that Christ light as a seed planted there in your heart. Feed that seed with a fertile field of acceptance, kindness, and love. Embrace that love. Become that love. Release your will to the heart of hearts, the heart of God's love, alive right there in your heart right now. Be with that presence in your heart. Allow that love to grow and let it fill your entire body now. Feel it transforming every single cell in your body. Let it move on down through your solar plexus, into your root chakra, your lower back, down your legs, your knees, your calves, your feet. Feel that you are a light body. That light body filled with Christed light, from the Christed consciousness, the highest light. Feel yourself being reborn, renewed, restored, redeemed to the light from which you came. Feel your soul recognizing that you are aware of the awareness of this presence with you right now. Breathe it in, feel the love, become the love, and breathe it out, allowing yourself to be one with God, united with this presence, knowing that indeed the Christ mind is there, alive within you, and you are alive in the oneness of God now and always. Now breathe slowly, come out of meditation. I'll close with the message I got. Let Christ's light guide you to the presence there within. Let the gifts of the beloved open your heart again. Let all of your old worries just slip away and find and embrace the new clarity that comes when you focus on how God can best be served each day. How does this transformation come? With a breath of spirit, a promise to do what is asked, and a will committed to serve the one. The seed is now planted. The highest thoughts sprout forth, and the creation's process is in control of your new rebirth. The vision is given, the word is heard. The prayers are there to allow you to serve. The soft wind whispers secrets with silent clues. What was impossible is now possible, and the dream of all dreams of awakening can come true. The Christ consciousness can come in many mysterious ways, for the teacher is always waiting to speak to you each and every day. So keep open wide your heart to this love that awaits. Let the blessed dream be there, and in time you'll find what you need to create. The answers to what you need you'll find in the birth of this new light, which will transform your life with the gift of the presence of God and the Christ and that presence divine within. I'm going to close today's talk with the Aramaic Lord's Prayer. It's a translation by John Mark Harmer of the Lord's Prayer done in Aramaic. Father, Mother of the cosmos, shimmering light of all, focus your light within us as we breathe your holy breath. Enter the sanctuary of our hearts, uniting within us the sacred rays of your power and beauty. Let your heart's desire unite heaven and earth through our sacred union. Help us to fulfill what lies within the circle of our lives today. Forgive our secret fears as we freely choose to forgive the secret fears of others. Let us not enter forgetfulness, tempted by false appearances. For from your astonishing fire comes the eternal song, which sanctifies all, renewed eternally in our lives and throughout creation. We seal these words in our hearts, committed in trust and faith. I thank you so much for being here today. Today's talk was based on Spiritual Mind Power Affirmations by Dr. Paul Leon Masters. Practical, mystical, spiritual inspiration, which you can find if you go to metaphysics.com, also available at amazon.com. And I have all of these Mystical Perspective shows available on my website, mysticalperspectives.com, with show notes. God bless you and thank you for listening, and God be with you always.